welcome to the Friday Football Forecast Show. I'm your host, Buster Crumpton. Chuck Wegman unable to make it with us today, so we're going to be flying solo. Hope I don't go too fast. Hope I'm able to bring you a little bit of information and give you some updates on 5A classification football here in the state of Georgia, as well as Region 8 5A here in Northeast Georgia. A lot of big games last week, a lot of games that had some top 20 implications, some shuffleness, some teams. So we're going to go to that classification 5A top 20 poll, and we're going to start off with number 11 through number 20. And we'll do like Chuck Webman likes to do. We'll start at 20 and work our way backwards. Coming in at number 20 this week at 4-3, the Bainbridge Wildcats down there in way South Georgia, just north of Tallahassee, Florida. They've won a couple in a row now. And our Clark Central Gladiators at 3-4, still getting a lot of respect from the posters, the people out at calpreps.com, as well as the Maxwell ratings. Have them a little bit higher than that, but in our GITV poll, they come in at 19. At 18 is Rome. After a big showdown with East Paulding, they fell mightily, 42-6 to East Paulding Raiders, and they dropped all the way to number 18. Richmond Hill at 5-2, along with Union Grove at 5-2. They're in the 17th and 16th spots. As we move over to number 15, our 5A team Heritage at 6-2. Lee County at 14, in the 14th spot at 6-1. Allatoona at 7-0, goes up to 13 this week. Tucker at 6-1 at number 12, and then Whitewater with a 7-1 record in the number 11 spot. That's your 11 through 20 top 20 teams in the classification 5A, and now we'll show you the top 10 this week, week number 9 in our GITV poll. Coming in at number 10. The Kell Longhorns at 6-1. Stevenson at 5-1 after that tough loss last week is at the number 9 spot. Ware County at 6-1, number 8. Number 7 is Flowery Branch in our region here at 6-2. ML King comes in at the number 6 spot, undefeated at 7-0. At number 5, Warner Robins, 6-1 record this year. Thomas County Central at 7-1 is at number 4. The East Paulding Raiders move all the way up to number 3 after that big victory over Rome we discussed earlier at 7-0. Gainesville, the team that Clark Central just played this past week, they jump all the way to number 2 in our GITV poll at 7-1. And, of course, the front runner who's been there the entire year, Northside Warner Robins at 7-0. They're your number 1 team in the state this week 9, 2012, classification 5A. Our state game of the week that we think might have some top 20 implications, not going to be too far from here down in DeKalb County. Number 6, ML King at 6-0 takes on number 9, Stevenson at 5-1. To give you a little history on this matchup, the series between these two teams tied at 3 games apiece. Both teams are averaging over 32 points per game. Last year, ML King won this game last year 50-49, only by 1 point. This has all the makings of a great high-octane offensive matchup between two of the state's best. ML King at 6-0, Stevenson at 5-1. ML King looking to stay undefeated. Stevenson trying to keep pace with Tucker and the rest of them in that region race. As we talk about the region races, we're going to look at the 8 5A standings here in our own region and take a look at how after this week things shaked out a little bit. In Region 8 5A, Gainesville and Flowery Branch both tied in the number 1 spot, both undefeated at 6-0. Gainesville, as we discussed on the Leroy Riles show, beat Clark Central pretty handily, 49-28. The game was a lot closer than that. Clark Central had some opportunities, but just couldn't make the most of the opportunities given them. But nevertheless, Gainesville stays undefeated. Flowery Branch had to come from behind. They beat Heritage 35-27, but at one point in that game, Heritage actually led Flowery Branch 27-6 as the third quarter started. So big comeback win for Flowery Branch to stay undefeated in the region at 6-0. And, of course, in the number 3 spot with the 2 losses now would be the Heritage Patriots. In the number 4 spot, Clark Central at 3-2. Remember, the top 4 teams is what gets into the playoffs. And there you see the yellow line. We'll see who's below that now. In the 5th spot, big win over Cedar Shows, Appalachia, 2-3. They came from behind after trailing 10-0 at halftime to come back and beat Cedar Shows here in Athens 27-23. And then, of course, that knocked Cedar below them and put them in a 3-way tie for 6 with all identical 1-4 records. Cedar Shows, Loganville, and Salem all tied for a 6th spot, but just one game out of that 5th spot. And then, of course, Winder-Barrow losing to Loganville 28-14 extends their losing streak now to 31 games. They're in 9th place. That's your region standings for week number 9. And now we'll take a look at the region matchups coming up this Friday. Gainesville is off this week, so they will not play. So we'll start off with Salem at 2-5, traveling over to Barrow County to take on Appalachia at 3-4. Salem trails in this series to Appalachia 3-1. Appalachia lost to the first time for Salem last year, 14-7, in a very hard defensive battle. Both of these teams giving up 30 points per game. Look for a high-scoring affair here, maybe one of those type of games that whatever team's got the ball last comes away with the win. In our another region matchup, Loganville at 2-5. They travel up to Conyers to play Heritage at 6-2. Heritage leads this series 5-3. Heritage has won the last 2 meetings as well. This year, Heritage scoring right at 23 points per game. Loganville scoring right at 21. So as both offenses might be kind of even there, look for Heritage defense to step up. They're giving up less than 20 points per contest. Loganville giving up right at 31 points per game. That'll be a big game for Heritage as they try to maintain pace for that possible 1 or 2 spot in the region as the season winds down. Another region matchup, Cedar Shows 3-4. They'll go over to Barrow County to take on the Winder-Barrow Bulldogs, who are at 0-7. Cedar leads this series 5-1. Winder-Barrow, as we've mentioned before, on a 31-game losing streak. Winder, for a stat for you people that keep up with this kind of stuff, Winder has not scored on Cedar in 2 years. Cedar Shows winning the last 2 contests, 33-0 last year and 26-0 the year before. That's all of our games that's in the region and around the region. And this week, the GITV Game of the Week, of course, will be coming to you right here on ClarkCentralGITV.com. Number 7, Flowery Branch, coming into Billy Henderson Stadium to take on the number 19 Clark Central Gladiators at 3-4. Clark Central leads this series all-time 2-0. We won in 2010 21-0 and had a 3 or 4 point victory last year. I can't remember. I do know it took the last possession of the game to win. Both teams identical this year. Both teams scoring over 30 points per game. Both teams giving up right at 23 points per game. Flowery Branch is trying hard to keep pace with Gainesville to remain undefeated in the region. Flowery Branch could even lose this game, and if they beat up with Gainesville at the end of the year on the last game with 1 loss, they could still beat Gainesville and still be region champs because of the head-to-head. But, of course, they would like to be undefeated when they get to Gainesville. Clark Central playing for their lives. They've got to win this game to try to force a 3-way tie for second. If they lose, we're probably going to be in that 4th position and for sure be on the road in the playoffs. So a lot of big things happening in the region this coming Friday. That's your region games of the week. And real quick, we want to give a shout-out to our GITV Players of the Week from the Gainesville game. And on the offensive side, we gave it this week to wide receiver Amir Williams. Amir had his best game since his season starting injury that he had with his collarbone. Had a lot of catches that sustained some drives for Coach Riles and even had a touchdown to boot. Amir Williams, our GITV.com Offensive Player of the Week. On the defensive side of the ball, our Clark Central GITV Defensive Player of the Week goes to defensive lineman Cavante Bug. It seemed like Cavante was in on every play. It seemed like number 94 was getting off the bottom of the pile or jumping on top of it, whichever way suited him best. And he did a lot to help slow down that high-octane offense of the Gainesville Red Elephants. So our Defensive Player of the Week, Cavante Bug. Defensive lineman, once again, want to remind you, this coming Friday night, Billy Henderson Stadium, 7:30 p.m., Flowery Branch comes into town to take on the Clark Central Gladiators. Big region contest. Can't emphasize how big this is. Clark Central's never lost to Flowery Branch. They'd like to keep that string intact. Flowery Branch looking to try to keep pace with Gainesville. To do that, they're going to have to beat Clark Central to stay undefeated. That's going to do it for the forecast show. I know it was a real quick rundown. Hope you got some information you can use. This is Buster Crumpton. I want to tell you we'll see you next week at this time. So long, everybody.